But I would say like that would be the first step, is like defining what matters to you as a company. And then the next step would be, of course, to kind of build your strategy based on the materiality. So now that I've understood what matters most to me as my company, I need to actually build objectives. With consulting, I think it's not just limited to like one discipline or one concept, it's everything together. So you have kind of that way of thinking is really, really important. Let's build that platform for those women. Let's kind of raise their voices even louder than they're at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we do that through like podcasts, we do that through different programs. But that's mostly it. That's my focus, I think, when it comes to the UAE chapter.
Creating a warm and engaging mechanism for your podcast. Consider Great Tell Me as a suggestion that combines an upbeat and inviting spirit without any background music. Welcome to Tangelic Talks, your go-to podcast from Tangelic, where we dive into the vibrant world of clean energy, development, sustainability, and climate change in Africa. We bring you inspiring stories, insightful discussions, and groundbreaking innovations from the continent making waves in the global community. Tune in and join the conversation toward a brighter, greener future. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tangelic Talks, a podcast at the intersection of energy, equity, and empowerment. I am your host, Andres Tamez, here with Victoria Cornelio and our wonderful guest, Dana.
Hi, everybody. In today's episode, we're zooming in on ESG, what it looks like in practice, what companies still get wrong, and why measurement matters more than ever. And we're focusing in the Middle East with our guest, Dana. We're joined by Dana Darwish, a climate change, carbon, and ESG Advisory Senior Consultant at WSP in the Middle East. Dana works with a wide range of organizations, navigating their ESG journeys, not just helping them report better, but pushing for more meaningful, embedded change across operations, governance, and culture. Welcome.
And I want to say I'm really sorry. The first thing I did was get your name wrong. I super apologize.
No, it happens. Trust me. Like, I mean, I'm very flexible. Don't worry about it. It's not that serious. But yeah, it is Dana. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And yeah, let's get it started.
Yeah, well, kick us off. How did you get into this world of ESG, especially in the Middle East? Is this something that is very mainstream? Are you kind of carving your way through it? What does that look like? How did you get here?
I feel like I was lucky to get into sustainability consulting at the right time because it was very trendy in this region. I feel like I started in 2020. So end of 2020 was the perfect time for sustainability consulting, I feel like, in this region, in the Middle East. How I got into it is through kind of connections and network, right? It's really important. So when I was doing my master thesis back in Germany. So I did my master's in Germany, University of Freiburg. I did it in renewable energy engineering and management. And I actually my focus was environmental management and policy. And my master's thesis was all about water, energy, food nexus. It was a comparative analysis between the UAE and Jordan. So kind of looking into those different regions within the Middle East, right? So we have the Levant at what side and then the Gulf at what side. So it was quite interesting because through my master thesis work, I had the chance and the opportunity. I was lucky actually because COVID was there. People were at their homes. There was a lot of the market was stagnant a bit. So people had a lot of, free time. So whenever I used to reach out to an industry leader, they would be open to, be interviewed by us, like master students. So I got really lucky. So through that work, I kind of got I built a network and I had more connections, especially in this region, especially in sustainability consulting, because we interviewed the right sustainability leaders. And through that kind of networking and connection and kind of getting information from them and interviewing them for my master thesis, I kind of got the opportunity, and I was lucky to actually kickstart my career at EY. So EY here in the Middle East and specifically in the Dubai office. And that's how it started, right? Because I don't know, there's a little bit of a background story of how I knew I wanted to be a consultant. If you want to hear that, I'm happy to share. But
of course, you've teased it now.
Okay. So basically, I never knew what I wanted to do. I only got into renewable energy engineering because I knew like it was a growing field, right? So I just never knew really what I wanted to do after my studies. And that's why I jumped from my bachelor's study immediately to master's because I didn't want to like think about like, getting a job and what I
Career,
exactly
yeah.
for. Yeah. So what happened is that through my master's study, I actually did an internship at the United Nations Environment Program in the Middle East headquarter. Actually, it was in Bahrain, Manama. So I kind of moved to Bahrain for like 2 months, did that internship. And when I was there at their offices, I just saw like how many consultants were there and they just seemed like they were cool. They had this cool vibe around them. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I really want to be a consultant because I want to be that person. I want to be busy all the time. I want to like meet new clients every day, have different projects under, that I can manage. And, it's all about multidisciplinary thinking and all of that. And I thought that fits me really well. So that's how I really like, that's how I started thinking like, okay, I think I want to go for consulting. And that's kind of like the story really.
That's so cool. I mean, I get that. Yeah, they always look really cool running around, going from one project to another and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a vibe for sure. And now
Hmm.
that you've been in this area for what, 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
how would you describe the current state of ESG in the Middle East right now? Specifically, you're in the UAE.
So, to be very honest, I was actually having an earlier conversation with one of my colleagues about this today. So it's quite interesting that you've raised this. To be very, very honest, like initially, of course, it was a growing field and, clients used to actually chase us as consultants to work with them. They would be like, we want to grow our sustainability department, but we don't have like a capability in place, or an in-house capacity to do that. But like they would hire more consultants and there would be actually in-house consultants as well at those companies. But nowadays, what I've
Right.
noticed, there's a bit of a shift. So, it happens, right? There's a new field, you get consultants, they help you build that capacity, etc. It reaches a point where those companies can manage them by themselves. They can manage sustainability by themselves. They hire the right people. It's all good. You gave them, you did the capacity building, all of that. You've built the structure, the governance structure for them, the strategy, whatever it is, and now they can actually
Yeah.
flow by themselves. And it's just a natural, organic, thing and cycle, and we need to just accept it. So that's the case here. I feel like with sustainability consulting. I mean, I'm very happy that my clients can they can build that on them like by themselves, and I'm really happy for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to kind of look into new services here, build our capacity even further. It's no longer about just governance and strategy. It's more now about implementation, how we can support the clients in actually implementing those strategies and objectives.
Yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Because it's good that they have the in-house capacity to do what you've told them, but there is that other side of when you're not part of the team anymore, you don't know if the things are getting implemented the way you wanted them to be, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? You said building a sustainability framework, building the sustainability department. Like, what does that mean? What does that do?
So, I mean, I feel like ESG or sustainability in general, it's a journey, right? And it's an evolving journey and it never really stops. So it usually starts with building the foundation or the right foundation, just like anything, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for sustainability, that would be kind of understanding what matters most for this specific industry and again, of course, for this specific company, because there is no standard definition or a unified, let's say, definition for sustainability or ESG. It differs from not just from one sector to another, not just from one region to another, but also from one company to another, even from one department to another. Because, what matters most, it differs based on stakeholders, based on expectations, requirements, and all of that. So when we say building the right foundation, we need to understand as a company, of course, what matters most to me. Is it
Okay.
actually climate? Is it actually, biodiversity? Is it even the social aspects like human resources, etc., right? Like human rights, etc., of course. And when we do we do that through a process called materiality assessment. So
Right.
usually through materiality assessment, we have a broad or a diverse set of stakeholders. It needs to be interactive. It needs to be like an evolving process, and it needs to be an evidence-based process. So there are specific frameworks and standards for doing a materiality. And there are different types of materiality assessments. So financial materiality, like double materiality or a impact materiality. It depends on the maturity of the company. So yeah, there are different routes for that. But I would say like that would be the first step, is like defining what matters to you as a company. And then the next step would be, of course, to kind of build your strategy based on the materiality. So now that I've understood what matters most to me as my company, I need to actually build objectives for those topics / pillars / strategic focus areas. Okay, so more like building the right objectives, building the right kind of purpose. So what is my purpose? What is my sustainability purpose as a company? So those are the questions you need to kind of ask yourself. And then, of course, going further, a step further would be, of course, kind of building your governance structure based on the strategy. So that would be, of course, your policy, that would be your procedures, the right people, setting ESG focal points across the company, having different departments involved into this, because it's not just a sustainability department responsibility. It's
a wide thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a company-wide thing, right? Because sustainability is not just limited. So that would be next. And then, of course, then the next steps come, that would be like the implementation programs, roadmaps, initiatives, putting those in place just because you want to actually achieve your targets. You can't just have targets that look nice without actually achieving that. It just doesn't make sense. And right now, I think there's more scrutiny with companies like public and the media and and then stakeholders in general. Like, it's no longer acceptable to have a target if it's not, first of all, measurable, and if it doesn't have time, like it's not time bound. And then, of course, if for example, I'll just disclose my target, and then after a couple of years, I just kind of disregard it. I'm like, okay, it's like it never happened. It doesn't work like that anymore. You need to kind of show your programs and kind of showcase the programs that you've built to reach this specific target. So it's really important that it's also achievable. So that would be, of course, next, which is like implementation. Implementation is never ending. So implementation has different programs under it. Of course, it touches upon different topics. So from your supply chain to your own people at the company. So like employment, all of that. And then, of course, it touches upon the environment. So climate, carbon, etc. So implementation is never ending. And then, of course, I wouldn't say this is a final step, but of course, you need to disclose your performance, and then you need to disclose and this needs to be done like annually or biannually, but disclosures is very, very important because, stakeholders, they have the right to see how the company is, first of all, progressing against its targets. And also they need to understand if there are any positive and also, of course, negative impacts of the company's operations. So they do that through sustainability reporting. And of course, it needs to be as well following like unified and standards and frameworks.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's why the goals have to be measurable, because when you get to that quote unquote last step, being able to show this is what we've done and everything. And I guess as you were talking, I was thinking about how I call this like gay marketing. So how in June, every company is Pride. And then as soon as June is over, it's like right back to business. So with a lot of sustainability frameworks, I see that approach a lot. It's like, oh, here's a campaign for Earth Day, and then we kind of forget about it. How do you make sure that it's embedded in the culture? Because that's how implementation is going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, companies were able to do that, I think, years ago. Like, they were able to get away with that like years ago. But now, like, everybody is kind of, like I was saying, there's like public scrutiny. So you really need to make sure that whatever you disclose as a target, that it's measurable, like, and it's achievable. To make sure that you kind of build that culture to reach your targets, I would say it's all about, like I said, your implementation plan and roadmap. You need to, first of all, before you even disclose your targets, it needs to come from, there should be a basis for that target, right? It could be based on previous year's performance. It could be based on, for example, usually it's based on data. Okay, let's just keep it like as simple as that. And I know Yeah, data and evidence. And I know there's like a data quality issues, and it's not just like specific to this region, but it's like a global issue. It's because in general, like methodologies differ. Data, the definition of data or the basis of reporting for that specific, let's say, data indicator or metric, it differs from one person to another. It differs from one department to another, for example. Yeah. So having a unified, I think, especially within the same company, a unified basis of reporting for metrics and slash targets is very, very important, so that, you know, make sure that you're measuring your performance in a more of an evidence-based way that is unified and that makes sense. So to me is very important. So I think in order for you to understand and define the right set of targets that are achievable, it's all about first having proper data quality. And then, of course, you need to build the right implementation roadmap based on that. And this comes from kind of, you can, I forgot that word, but it's kind of like through building roadmaps for example, if I do like continue my business as usual operations, let's say, and I don't do anything, I don't introduce any initiative, where am I going to be in terms of this indicator, right? And then, of course, you kind of, and then you have different roadmaps for, like, for example, if I want to introduce this specific initiative, where I'm going to, you know, how am I going to actually reach my target? So it's through that, really.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of project management as well. Is that, what are the skills that are needed to sort of either be a consultant or aid in this implementation of a sustainability framework?
Okay, well, it differs. Like a consultant is, I feel like a skills for consultant, I always say like you need to have that kind of interdisciplinary way of thinking. It's really important to have that, because it's not like with consulting, I think it's not just limited to like one discipline or one concept, it's everything together. So you have kind of that way of thinking is really, really important. And then, of course, you need to kind of be able to manage any new shifts, let's say, or new trends that come. You know, there are always new trends, right? So it's really important to have that kind of personality where you're able to be resilient to those ever-changing trends, especially in sustainability. So that to me is really important in consulting. Now, when it comes to project management and implementing the sustainability framework, I would say, unfortunately, I feel like this is what I've noticed, is that everybody thinks like sustainability departments, they're very, very annoying, right? Like every other, like, going to companies, they would be like, oh my God, like, why are you asking me to report this data to you? Like, it's just annoying. Because usually those, you know, I feel bad for sustainability departments, because those members, like the members of the, you know, the sustainability departments, they keep chasing everyone within the company to give them the data, the proper set of data, etc. Implementing the initiatives properly. And there's always like a lot of requirements that come out of the sustainability departments. So unfortunately that like people think like in general, like it's quite annoying. It becomes really annoying, and it's understandable, right? So as a sustainability department, I would say like just work hand in hand with your, you know, with the different departments is really important. Work hand in hand with the consultants is also very important. Be very transparent. I think transparency is key in order to have proper implementation. And then, of course, I mean, you just need to have the right background information. Like, there's always new standards that go out, especially with reporting. So you need to be on top of those things. That to me is key in order to ensure a proper implementation of a sustainability framework.
Yeah, that makes sense. The reason I ask is because a lot of people who are either new to the space or looking into getting to the space have this idea that you have to be an engineer, or you have to be, you know, someone who is in the STEM fields to be, you know, good at this, because it's a lot, especially in renewable energies, a lot of it is very technical and I don't know, hard work, I guess. Like, I'm a comms person. So to me, it's like, oh, I know how to talk to people and I can analyze data, but I can't tell you why this is this. You know what I mean? So those kinds of knowledges, I think, stop a lot of people from going into this kind of work.
I mean, to be honest, like,
a pattern of that, or?
No, comms is I was going to say, like, comms is a very big factor for sustainability. Without comms, I think a company's sustainability mission will never work. Because trust me, like the sustainability departments, they need comms, okay? It's because through comms, they kind of, first of all, disclose the right kind of information about their sustainability. They build that, reputation about their sustainability performance. Basically, through comms, you communicate your performance, your internal performance to the external. So they need, like, of course, comms and sustainability departments, they work hand in hand. So trust anyone can get into sustainability. It's not about people with STEM or whatever. I know people that are at really high positions in sustainability, and they, for example, just studied, like, I don't know, marketing. Okay, like their studies were in or, like, for example, in politics. So it works. It has nothing to do with what your background is, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. It's about kind of the mindset. If you have the right mindset, you will definitely succeed in sustainability fields.
Yeah, a lot of it is the transferable skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, what are the specific, like, goals? Because every country is different, or every region is different, right? When it comes to what their ESG goals might imply or where they need to improve. Where do you say that, like, in the companies you work with, what do they need to push forward, or what do they want to push forward right now, right? Like, what's their priorities?
Yeah, good question. Because ESG is quite broad, right? And it includes a lot of aspects within it. So right now, I feel like I'm just going to talk about the UAE. So right now, because the UAE went out with, or they published their UAE climate change law to meet their net zero target of 2050. Now they have mandated that companies need to measure their scope 1, 2, and 3. I think it was just scope 1 and 2 emissions. I can check, but I think it's mostly scope 1 and 2 emissions. All right. So in general, like, their GHG emissions. All right. And if they don't really measure that and report it, then of course penalties would occur, and penalties can go up to 1 million dirhams, which is quite a lot actually for a company. So right now, I think the priority in the region is carbon, as it is everywhere else in the world, right? It's net zero and carbon. I think it's all about kind of how we're going to meet, the country's net zero targets, and having the right kind of, first of all, having the right set of initiatives in place to meet your net zero targets, but also measuring the emissions on an annual basis. So that is kind of, I think, the main pain points right now when it comes to the companies here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do the companies contribute to reaching that net zero? Like, where is it? Yeah, what exactly? Because as someone just like an outsider, right, looking in, it's like, okay, that would be on one hand, it's on a grid level, right? Because of, like, that's how the energy is produced. And then as a company, you do a lot of things that could generate emissions. But is there any main one other than energy? Like,
No, I understand what you mean. No, I mean, the whole process of, like, measuring your emissions, first of all, you need to kind of understand where are my highest kind of sources for, like, the highest emission emitting kind of source, right? Or carbon emitting source. So it could be, like you said, from energy. It could be from transportation. It could also be from your purchase kind of activity. So, like, the supply chain, considering, like, the supply chain emissions. So that's scope 3 emissions, right? So it could be direct and indirect also emissions. So first of all, you need to kind of understand what are the most carbon emitting sources. It doesn't have to be only energy, right? Because actually the most, I think, for all the companies in general, this is just a general thing, but it could have variances, but mostly I would say predominantly the most emissions come from scope 3. So scope 3 means, like, my indirect emissions. So that comes from your spend. So where am I spending my money in? So it considers your supply chain, right? Gotcha. So that is mostly, I think, the most predominant emission source.
Interesting. Okay, that's okay. So it's mostly about moving things.
Exactly.
Well, because
And it's
to
really
my
hard.
understanding, shipping and supply chains are one of the industries we haven't learned how to regulate because it's just such a massive thing that moving something, from one side of the ocean to the other, is there a better way to do it in the fast and economic way that we do now? That's what I've heard is kind of the pain point in that. I don't know if you've got something you can tell us about that.
No, I agree because it's quite difficult, like you said, especially if you're relying on suppliers, like you said, from like from overseas, etc. It's quite difficult for you to, and then you don't have any kind of sources or other suppliers regionally or even locally
Yeah.
for that. So it becomes quite difficult. And the thing is, I was gonna add is it's quite hard in general to measure scope 3 emissions as well, because it requires engaging with a lot of suppliers and a lot of
Hmm.
stakeholders and getting the right data and etc. So it's quite difficult. And most companies tend to estimate, use spend, actually they use a specific spend based estimates initially in
Hmm.
order for them to start, tracing scope 3 emissions. But it is difficult. I mean, after
I can
time,
imagine how
yeah,
the logistics department is going to be like, I don't know how to measure this. Like,
yeah.
what a pain.
Yeah, no, 100%. Super difficult. But it takes time. And the thing with data and reporting and everything is the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. Do you reckon there's like a particular ESG metric that is overemphasized while there are like more important ones that are overlooked? Are we kind of picking and choosing what we want to focus on?
I mean, I mean, good question. But at the same time, I don't think so because, like I said, it depends
Good.
on the materiality of the company, right? So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like you're not really picking and choosing. It's more like what is most material for me. I'm going to disclose the data on that. So I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say that. It's a bit subjective because it depends, like from one sector to another. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think so. I think what I do believe is that companies need to disclose more social indicators and social related
Okay.
data. I mean, like I'm talking about diversity indicators, I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
human rights, and I'm talking about health and well-being. I think that needs to be like I believe that usually companies kind of overlook social aspects and they focus more on the environment because they
Mm-hmm.
misunderstand or there's misunderstanding that when I speak about sustainability, I'm talking about environmental preservation, but it's not about that. Sustainability is
Yeah.
not only about environment, actually, because
Mm-hmm.
without human rights, without social sustainability, there's actually no overall sustainability, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So 100%. I think that is something that companies overlook. And me as a senior consultant, I usually tend to sit with my clients and I make them understand that actually no, like social sustainability is really, really important. It's gonna be even more, it's always gonna be important, regardless of whatever era we're in. And I think it takes time for them to kind of understand that it's not just about environmental preservation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like, if things are sustainable, they feed back into the community, which is also the social tracking and things like that. And so it all kind of comes together, so to speak. I guess one of the reasons I'm
Mm-hmm.
so interested in
100%.
ESG metrics is because a lot of the reporting can also lead to access to finance or funding or, things like that, grants, project grants, stuff like that. Have you seen a link between ESG performance and access to finance in the Middle East? Are you seeing that connection strengthen or are they kind of not related?
No, 100%. Yeah. I mean, right now, most of especially the large companies, they're large in scale, of course, they're building their
Hmm.
own sustainable finance framework. And that has its own like standards and etc. So definitely this is becoming a priority, especially with like investment companies and etc. So like for sure, this is a growing field here.
Okay, okay, that's really cool. I guess I don't know, a lot of companies sort of with the comms team, want to show off like the good that they're doing, but there's also the public mistrust of greenwashing and sort of, trying to toot your own horn too much. So is there a balance between we're doing great on ESG and also we've got work to do?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, it's more like do not disclose only or focus on the positive potential impacts, but it's really important that you recognize and you measure your negative potential impacts, whether it's potential or / actual impacts, whether that's on the society, economy, and also the environment. So that is something very important because companies need to equally, I think, look into both aspects, as well as, like I said initially, like do not overcommit, do not like disclose targets that are not achievable just because you want to get like, you just want to look clean and green. I don't think that's the goal anymore. It's not about looking like leaders in the industry. It's more about being a responsible business. I think when you shift that mindset, it just becomes, sustainability becomes more not a question of how can we, become better. It's not like that. It just becomes like a natural kind of, it becomes like part of the DNA of the company. It's no longer like, oh, I need to do it because people want me to do it or because I want to make myself look good as a company. It becomes kind of part of my DNA as a responsible business. So that is kind of the mindset that I think companies need to have
adopt.
When it comes to
Yeah, and it makes sense because you are the UAE chapter leader for women in renewable energy. So you're kind of doing work in this exact field, not just in the environmental side, but that social side. So through your work with that, are there any gaps that you see around gender, leadership, and inclusion in ESG decision making, even though it's meant to be very data evidence based?
Good question. I mean, to be very honest with you, when it comes to the UAE, or in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, right? I don't know if I'm being biased, but it's like literally the truth. There are a lot of women participation. Okay. It's not like there is that's what I witnessed, right? So we see a lot of women having really high positions when it comes to sustainability, also clean energy. There is no longer that kind of I feel like there's a societal shift, especially in this region where we've overcome that societal kind of stereotypes about women and STEM and sustainability and etc. So to me, I don't see much of a gap, okay, or like a gap. I see more like we need to kind of upskill maybe women so that they even get a higher and higher positions than they're already at. You know what I mean? We want to see more at the board level now, but it's there. Like I'm just gonna be very
it's
honest.
happening.
Yeah, it's happening. So through Wire, I think to me, like right now, it's not about kind of how can we close the gap, especially in the U. I'm talking about the UAE, but Wire is a global organization. But I'm just talking about my UAE chapter. It's not about closing the gap any longer. It's more about let's build that platform for those women. Let's kind of and raise their voices even louder than they're at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we do that through like podcasts, we do that through different programs. But that's mostly it. That's my focus, I think, when it comes to the UAE chapter.
That's really cool. And please do send us those links because we're going to put them on the blog. Thank you so much, Dana, for being here with us. We're going to stay on a little bit longer, get a bit more technical on the blog section, but also any resources that you have, the programs that you're talking about. If you can send us a link to the chapter that you were a part of as well, that'd be really cool. We're going to link it on the blog. And thank you so much for being here. This was really interesting.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be part of this. This was a really exciting conversation. And I don't know if you feel the same, but this was really fun. And it's just like a very
yeah. And we're going to stay on a bit longer. So we'll see you guys in the next one.
I have a couple questions for the blog. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Let's talk power, let's talk change. From rural lights to brighter days. Equity rising, voices strong. We're building tomorrow where we all belong. Tangelic Talks, energy, equity, pride. Empowering the world, side by side. A spark becomes a fire, a vision that's true. Together we rise, it starts with you.